Hello everybody, video here for you today. This is the No Cap recap of the new Oak Island Companion Show series Tales from Oak Island Season 1, Episode 7, called A Mystery for the Generations, originally aired January 21st, 2025. I recap the main show late Tuesday nights and this show a day or two later. There's a link to my Oak Island playlist in the upper right. Let's get into it. Previously on Oak Island, people have been looking for an incredible treasure for 230 years. Since before The Curse of Oak Island became a TV show, Rick and Marty Lagina have been trying to determine the who, what, where, when, and how of the island. With focus on the when and who over the years, the team has found countless artifacts and structures that are from the 700s to the 1600s, spanning many historical eras up to the 1795 discovery of the Money Pit. The finds lend credence to the theory that knowledge of the island has been passed down to each generation, and that the structures and underground workings are a result of groups in different time periods building them. One of the suspects is the Norse from Scandinavia, more commonly known as the Vikings. They expanded throughout northern and western Europe from the 700s to the 1000s AD, and then ventured west to the New World, long before the birth of Christopher Columbus. It is unknown how much more of the North American eastern seaboard they explored, but the carbon dating of their only known settlement, which is in Newfoundland and called Lands Meadows, goes back as far as 990 AD. They would have had to travel 600 plus miles south to get the butternut seeds found there. Oak Island is 120 miles closer to Lands Meadows than the closest butternut tree area. This artifact, found in the swamp that is thought to be a railing off a ship, carbon dated from the 660s to the 900s. The Vikings are the only Europeans known to be active in the area during that time span. A more recent theory is that once the Norse adopted Christianity and made the pilgrimage to the Holy Land and even participated in the Crusades, they and the Knights Templar together made the journey to the New World. Even with minimum involvement, the Vikings could have shared knowledge of Oak Island or the New World in general, and or provided transport there to the Templars. Templar headquarters was at the location of King Solomon's Temple, now known as the Temple Mount, and it is suspected that during their many years there they explored under it and found treasure and holy relics hidden there so they would not fall into enemy hands. Among the discoveries that support Templars being on Oak Island is Nolan's Cross, found in 1981 by Fred Nolan. It is 6 megalithic boulders aligned to form a cross. Archaeoastronomy expert Professor Adriano Gaspani found the 1200s AD alignment of these stars match Nolan's Cross. The paved area found in the swamp and the Lot 26 well that has high silver content in the water and does not freeze when everything else does, both date back to that same time period. More recent finds have suggested further activity on Oak Island in the 1300s when the Order of the Knights Templar was accused of heresy, disbanded, and prosecuted by the King of France, who was deeply in debt to them, and the Pope, who likely didn't like the amount of power and influence the Templars had. The Templars could have had an inkling that trouble was coming and hid their wealth. It has never been accounted for. Corroborating evidence includes 2 maps presented by researcher Zena Halpern in 2016, one of Nova Scotia that says a Templar voyage took place from 1178 to 1180, and another that matches the Nova Scotia coastline and Oak Island, dated 1347. The first period is close to the 1200s date Professor Gaspani gave for not only Nolan's Cross, but also stone piles referred to as pirate piles and cairns on Lot 15. 1347 would be a second voyage after the Templar downfall in 1307. On the left is a carving of a cross seen by Rick and members of the team in 2017 on a field trip to Dome, France, in a prison that held persecuted Knights Templar. On the right is a lead cross dated to the 1300s found by Gary Drayton and Rick in Smith's Cove 1 week later. The isotope data revealed not only the date but also the Templar mine that the metal came from, which is located in southern France.
So at some point, these all can't be coincidences.
The King of Portugal rebranded the Knights Templar as the Knights of Christ, and Portugal was a safe haven for former Templars. The Portuguese made exploratory voyages to the New World between the 14 and 1600s. Famous Portuguese explorers, including Ferdinand Magellan, which in the United States we say Magellan, were members of the Knights of Christ. In 2020, the stone rose was uncovered beneath the man-made swamp on Oak Island. Terry DeVoe, president of the New England Antiquities Association, examined it and likened it to a stone road built in Portugal in the 1500s. Rick and members of the team took a field trip to Portugal in 2021 and saw it firsthand. It is near the Knights of Christ headquarters. Organic matter from in and around the Oak Island Stone Road date to the 15 and 1600s. Another offshoot of the Knights Templar is the Scottish Order of the Knights Baronet. King James I of England appointed one of its members lead of the effort to colonize Nova Scotia, which is Latin for New Scotland. Some believe that the Knights Baronet had an ulterior motive protecting treasure they knew to be buried on Oak Island. Many of them were Knights Templar descendants. In 1632, the King of France owed England disputed money, and King James agreed to give Nova Scotia back to France in order to be paid. The Knights Baronet colonists had a historically documented 8 days to pack up and leave. Some believe that they hid their wealth on Oak Island. It included all of the funds for establishing and supporting the colony, so it was an amount that would be worth millions of dollars today. In 2020, Gary found this wooden T-square in the swamp. The carbon dating was that same year, 1632 to 1638. Some wood from deep in the Money Pit area also dated as old as 1626. A newer iteration of the Knights Templar would be the Freemasons. They share many beliefs, rituals, and symbology. Almost all of the searcher groups, including the Discoverers and the current team, had at least one Freemason among their numbers. William Phipps, discoverer of the Concepcion Spanish treasure galleon shipwreck, was not a Mason, but his assistant Andrew Belcher was. The Concepcion manifest said 34 tons of silver, which was taken from South America. The theory is that since he was very short on the amount of treasure his second trip to the wreck yielded, he could have kept some of it, hiding it on Oak Island. In the past few years, artifacts scientifically linked to Phipps have been found on the island. Revealed on the main show in the last episode was a vault in the swamp that Gary Drayton thinks is a Phipps cache due to the artifacts that he and his daughter Katja have pulled out of it. The Artifacts episodes have not been aired yet, but Gary talked about it in the Oak Island companion show Drilling Down that aired right before the season 12 premiere in November of 2024. Andrew Belcher was caught near Oak Island on one of Phipps' ships during the time he would have been returning from the second trip. A researcher found a letter that said that on the return trip, Belcher and crew landed at Port Les Bers in Nova Scotia near Oak Island as shown, and shortly after burned their ship. Belcher's son's friend, also a Freemason, was one of the first lot owners on Oak Island. In 2019, the Laguna team began investigating the eye of the swamp and found a circle of boulders under the water and muck. The eye of the swamp and the triangle shape of the swamp both match the all-seeing eye, a Masonic symbol that was put on the US dollar bill. Many of America's founding fathers, including first President George Washington, were Freemasons. Dr. Ian Spooner determined that the soil disturbance below the boulders happened 1680 to 1700, which is contemporary with those Phipps and Belcher activities. A researcher says that you would think that the triangle swamp and the all-seeing eye would be very obvious, but perhaps it was done as a marker for future generations. Next time on an all-new The Curse of Oak Island episode called Graves Concerns, airing January 28, 2025, as the Fellowship uncovers more of the mysterious structure in the swamp. That's the vault I was talking about. Artifacts within it. That's the artifacts I was talking about. Suggest it could be a vault with a compelling history. And on February 28, 2025, another all-new episode called Best Case On Scenario. The evidence is building, and the team believes they are finally zeroing in on the elusive treasure vault. With confidence at an all-time high, the Fellowship prepares to retrieve it as they call in the caissons. I'll be continuing No Cap Recaps, Curse of Oak Island, late Tuesday nights as the new episodes air, and this show, Tales from Oak Island, a day or two later, but there are none scheduled for the next 2 weeks. The Tales from Oak Island series. My Oak Island playlist and Skinwalker Ranch playlist are linked on this screen. The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch seasons 1 and 5 are done, and I'm working on seasons 2 through 4. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Sempre avanti.